And we are live and on the air. Welcome to Omnibroslive to all three of you who are not seeing Endgame tonight. Thank you for joining us. Myself, I'm Omnidog from Omnidog's Vault on YouTube, and I am joined by the fabulous Geo from A Week in Geekdom. Geo, how's it going, buddy?
Doing pretty well myself, Jess. I am really happy to be here. And to everybody that's tuning in, you guys are the best. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I am in a mood between totally pissed and ready to commit murder. Yeah. I got the movie spoiled for me, a major plot point before I had to ban somebody from the group. That is part of the job of being a mod in a major Facebook group. And I had to throw myself on that grenade. And whatever. That's a first world problem.
I mean,
excuse me.
Yeah. If it's any comfort, I think I may have read some spoilers by accident, and I'm pretty pissed. But whatever, it's just a movie. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it was only one thing. There's probably 40 other things that happened that I don't know about. And peace and love, peace and love. I'm not reading chat tonight. Geo is monitoring the chat, so don't spoil the movie for Geo. Peace and love, peace and love. Please do not spoil the game end game for Geo. This is going to be the biggest movie in U.S. history. It's going to open with about 750 million in box office. We're all excited. We're all excited to see it. So please just cool your jets. Don't spoil it. Let's all have fun. Yada yada yada. And you know who has fun? We have fun when we order from InStockTrades.com. They don't spoil anything. You can get your collected editions up to 50% off from InStockTrades.com. Their loyalty discounts add an extra 2% to that. Every quarter, there's an Omnibros Live discount code. I bet it's coming up pretty soon. Over $50 in an order in the United States gets you free shipping. They have the best customer service and the most amazing packaging. That's InStockTrades.com.
They're the
best. They are the best. So we have a choice between talking about comic tropes and trends that need to change in comic books or the best David Bowie albums in history.
Well, you can cover both topics. I love David Bowie, but I'm not knowledgeable on the whole discography, if you will. So you'd be an expert in that area.
I like to think of myself as pretty knowledgeable about David Bowie. I've been listening to him since I was about 12 years old, and we all know how old I am now, so that means I've been listening to him for. Yeah, we can talk about comic tropes and trends that need to change. These are things in the following categories that we feel need to change in the industry. That's publishing, art, writing, and collected editions. Do I have that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of wanted to pick a topic that we could talk about a little bit and just muse over because, yeah, there's a lot of tropes and publishing ideas and stuff that are still going on today, and I kind of want to see like they hit the reset button and try something new, something different, and maybe it could work, maybe not. We'll see.
Okay. Well, since this was your idea, you start.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I am always fascinated about with comic books is its long history. I was recently talking to an intern at work, and he wanted sort of to get into comic books but didn't really know how to or where to start. And like, he likes the superhero movies, but that's about it. He's read a few titles like Miss Marvel for over at Marvel and stuff like that. And honestly, I was a little bit taken aback because he's a manga reader, and manga is very easy to just pick a title and go with it.
That's true.
Whereas with comics, you've got Marvel is celebrating 80 years of history.
Yeah.
DC has, I think, like 85 or something, a few more years ahead of Marvel.
A little bit, yeah.
And it's confusing because you either go with modern runs, but then you want to go back and read older material. But then when you read the older material, you're like, wait, I need to read older material. So you have to go back a couple more years, and it can get a little bit confusing, especially when they reboot and they do multiple number ones, and when they do company-wide events that cancel this and start that. And I think, like, I don't think they should continue this obsession of renumbering.
Oh,
just
unbelievable.
Yeah, just
Marvel particularly is guilty of this.
I mean, since 2014, I think we had like 3 Marvel reboots, so that's 3 different number ones, and within those 3 gaps, you also had multiple reboots within each other. So, like, we were reading the Silver Surfer omnibus, and you have to read Silver Surfer 1A and then Silver Surfer 1B because it's totally different. Same with Ms. Marvel. I think that's pretty silly, and that can confuse your new readers. A lot of people that are watching these movies, especially now with Marvel and Avengers Endgame, maybe a small percentage of them, I'd like for them to be a larger one, but a small percentage will want to dive into comic books. Maybe they'll watch a video that we do and be like, hey, I want to read a comic book. Where the heck do I start? And there's like 700 different Avengers to choose from. I think something, I don't know, guide or a different way to attract readers. I don't necessarily think you have to do number ones and number ones, because if a new reader starts reading a number one, eventually he will have a pretty large quantity of books, and it'll get rebooted with another number one. So all his efforts will have been for nothing because he has to start over, or they go back to the regular numbering, for example. And that numbers game can be confusing because unlike, for example, My Hero Academia, which is just one title and you just read it, you can have Spectacular Spider-Man or Amazing Spider-Man or Ultimate Spider-Man. And yeah, not a lot of new mainstream readers want to deal with that. So that's my first little nitpick, the numbering situation. I don't know. I think they could come up with something different.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you that it's very confusing, especially with Marvel having so many number ones the past few years. It's confusing to old readers as well. I mean, when you get so many new number ones, it geeks out the system, and it makes it confusing to us. So it can make it almost impossible for a new reader. I'm not sure what the answer is for DC and Marvel. I think, excuse me, as far as DC goes, which is what I know better than Marvel, and maybe to a certain extent with Marvel, this is true. I think New 52 was an idea that they wanted to be new reader friendly, that it was like a fresh start for Superman and Batman. I remember in Justice League 1 where Green Lantern shows up and says, Batman, you're real? And Batman says, and you're too bright. Tone it down. You're going to get us caught. And so that's where they first meet in Justice League. And I thought New 52, love it or hate it, whatever, was a good starting point for new readers because it sort of washed everything away and new readers could start with it. As far as Rebirth goes, I had to do a whole video on how to read Rebirth, because you had to take bits and pieces from the end of New 52 Superman to understand the beginning of Rebirth Superman. So I don't know that Rebirth was as reader friendly as New 52 was. And now with Marvel, I think one of the things they did when they sort of did their hard reboot with all those new characters taking over. Well, let me think. There was Hawkeye, there was Captain America, there was Wolverine, there was Iron Man, who was Ironheart. Who am I forgetting? I mean, there was Thor, Hulk,
Spider-Man, maybe, if you want to count Miles. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I thought that could have been a good jumping on point for new readers, but I think the issue with that was and the reason they got so much older fan pushback was that it happened all at once. Yeah. And new readers felt that it was getting jammed down their throat under the banner of political correctness. And had they done it over a longer period of time, it could have worked. But it happened all at once, and it came as a shock to the older fans. And of course, they lashed out. I mean, I love X-23, so I'm quite happy with her being all new Wolverine, because it was well written and great. But I can understand the older fan who loves Logan not being happy with that, because it felt forced, and Marvel got backed into a corner, said some dumb things, and I felt that was an editorial decision that was probably, in hindsight, was they were rolled out too quickly. I think if they had done it over a longer period of time, work those characters in slowly and more organically, that it could have been more successful and there would have been less backlash, because I liked all of those particular new characters. I liked Ironheart. I liked Kate Bishop as Hawkeye. I didn't read a lot of Amadeus Cho. I'm so far behind on Spider-Man that I've really not read a lot of Miles Morales, although I loved Into the Spider-Verse, so the movie. Who am I not? I guess you could throw Ms. Marvel in there, who is awesome, even though she's not a rebooted character, but she got released right in there. So I think that if you're going to replace, that's something that I don't think could happen at DC, just because they're, I mean, you just can't replace Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent like that. I snapped my fingers and half the world disappeared. You just can't replace them like that. You ended up being able to replace Barry Allen with Wally West, but that was done organically, and it happened back in 1986. So, so that's just my thoughts on that, having to deal with newer characters. Now, Ms. Marvel's new reader friendly, and I'm trying to look at my Marvel in my screen here to see what else is new reader friendly. Jonathan Hickman is not new reader friendly.
No, that's a little bit confusing.
but yeah, I agree with everything you said.
Omnipool says, "Hi everyone, I'm here to watch Jess pour root beer on people who spoil Endgame, and especially Robert Kirkman."
Kirkman, my nemesis. Hello, Kirkman.
Debate.
Okay, we lost your video for a sec, and now we lost.
Am I here?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Phew. Going back to what you said with the Marvel characters, there are two groups of people. One that want to read things as they were, and they sort of want to stay like in a state of limbo with these characters, where there's a story, the run ends, somebody picks it up, and then they reboot the same thing and continue going forward. And there are other people that want change. I think with X-23 and with Miles, that progression was slow or longer, I guess. Miles debuted in 2012, and X-23 was way back in 2001. So that change was a little bit natural compared to Riri Williams, that, like it or not, came out of nowhere and took everybody by surprise. It was a little bit too sudden for some people. So yeah, I do agree that there has to be like a progress for these characters to come in and not necessarily replace anybody, just enrich the universe of more characters and superheroes. DC has a better time with this because they've always been about legacy and having sidekicks and all that stuff. When Marvel first started, the idea of sidekicks didn't exactly start with them. It was later on in the 80s and 90s where we started seeing sidekicks and all that stuff take center stage. So I think like the New 52 was a great idea. I am a huge comic book fan because of the New 52, because I wasn't reading comics. It brought me in. Now, I'm not saying it was 100% great, but it did its job, and it introduced me to a wonderful cast of characters, and I love the company for it, with Marvel as well. So I think changes scary, but it's good because this is a world. I don't want it to be stagnant. I don't want to read Spider-Man having the same issues for 80 years or whatever, however long it takes.
You know what? You're dropping out. You're dropping out a lot. I think we need you to restart because I'm missing about half of what you're saying, and now you're frozen. Can you hear me at all? Phenomena. Do 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 do. Phenomena. Do 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 do. Phenomena. Do 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 do. Geo, can you hear me? Do 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 do. Can you hear what I'm saying? Geo, you need to reboot. I bet he's rebooting, and we'll see 2 Geos here in a second. Yeah, okay, there he dropped out, so he's rebooting. So I can't see the chat, so I don't know what you're saying, but hang in there, Geo's coming right back. And in other Omnidog news, here he is. Let's see, how's that?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh boy. It's still pretty choppy.
Nothing.
Well, I heard that nothing.
No. How about now?
Do you think it would help if you rebooted your computer?
Yeah, let me try that. I'll be right back.
Okay. I'll tell the audience about, even though my day got off, well, midday, my day was ruined because I found out a major plot point in Endgame, but I'm not going to let that ruin my day because my daughter got a great new job, so I'm very excited for that. She's got a female boss that's going to be a great mentor to her. She starts next Wednesday, so that's in Omnidog news. I know you guys are all riveted by Omnidog news. She'll be working in Washington, D.C., and the office is full of women, which is great for her because she's worked for a bunch of dickhead men before. Peace and love to all you men out there, but she did not have a good experience with the previous men she worked with, and she needs to work with a mentor who can help guide her and make her into somebody that can use all her talents and her tools and can help her grow. Peace and love, peace and love. And we beat Horizon Zero Dawn today, the greatest game ever. If you haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, you need to get on it on the PlayStation 4. That's where we played it. I don't know if it's available on other platforms. Holy guacamole, what a great game that is. We put in 79 hours into that game. If you're a great gamer, if you're like an excellent gamer, maybe you'll put in less. But we finished that game and we loved it. So give that game a shot. Okay, how are we doing, Gio?
I have no idea. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound coherent there.
Okay. Okay, let's see what happens. Hopefully, if it doesn't work again, I'll move to another spot or something. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, go sit next to your modem.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Yeah. What were we talking about when we last spoke?
We did what now?
What were we talking about when I left? Was I talking about Marvel or something?
I don't know. You just dropped out there.
It's okay. I was probably talking about longevity and characters growing into roles or whatever. But yeah, you described it perfectly.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. As far as publishing goes, I would like something that this is starting to change, and this is a case of I don't know the answer to it, and publishers are I know publishers are trying their hardest to get more women into comics to write and draw. They need desperately to get a woman's perspective, especially into writing women in comics. This has been something that's been missing for far too long, and there are more women in comics, and there's really good female writers out there writing really good stuff, which is a hopeful sign, because if they were writing shit, then they wouldn't hire more female writers, but they're writing good stuff, and so that is going to generate more female writers. Now, I don't know what you do to go out and find more talented writers. Do you get established authors? Do you go to cons and solicit female writers that don't have published material? Do you poach from Image female writers that have their own stuff? Do you go find self-published writers and get their stuff? I don't know. I have the questions tonight. I don't have the answers. There need to be more believably written female characters written by female writers. And that is changing. And it's actually changing faster now in the past couple of years. It was at a glacial pace 5 years ago, but now we're seeing a lot more. I'd like to see it happen a lot faster, but you can't rush it if they're not, you know, if the talent's not there, the talent's not there. But you can, yeah, I don't have the answers, but I want to see more female writers and artists. I mean, they can write about whatever they want to write about: men, women, cosmic adventures involving, you know, 12-breasted aliens from planet Zorg. I don't care, but as long as they're relatable and interesting, that's fine with me.
Yeah, totally. And just people need to realize that when you have different people, diverse backgrounds writing comic book characters, the end result is you're going to get a much richer experience, and these characters can do and say things that they've never done and probably go into different new exciting areas, whereas before you just had like this pool of writers just sort of mimicking each other because they're writing the same characters over and over. Whereas you get new people involved, you can, you know, you just break out from that cycle of superhero tropes of them doing the same thing over and over. Yeah, it's a good thing. I want to see more diverse writers. It can't all be the same 30 white dudes just doing the same old thing.
Right, and let me throw in people of color in there too. Yeah, we need more of those in there to write more believable and interesting people of color characters too. I'm definitely.
I mean, the medium evolved to a degree where it's no longer just about people punching each other. It's a medium that expresses so many emotions, and to have the same thing over and over, I don't know. For me, it gets a little bit boring. I'd rather see all walks of life writing about these characters or making up new characters to interact and enriching this wonderful universe of comic books that we all love.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know what year it was, but I went into my comic shop and they were trying to sell me on Future's End from DC. And they were also trying to sell me on, I can't remember who the writer was, but John Romita Jr. was the artist. And the Superman book was nothing but fights, and Future's End was nothing but weirdness and fights. And it was like, you guys,
yeah,
I don't know. I was 50 at the time or whatever. I'm like, this is stuff I've been reading for the past 45 years. I'm not into this. I've seen these fights. And of course, these were all 25-year-olds who thought it was the bitchinest thing ever. I get that, but I'm not 25. I want to find I want to find interesting, weird things. You know, my latest book order was Gideon Falls Book 2 and Doctor Strange by Donny Cates, and I have no idea how this Mark Millar book is going to be, The Magic Order, but it sounds different, and you know, it's always a roll of the dice with Mark Millar. But that's the kind of book I'm reading. I just read My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies by Ed Brubaker. That's the kind of book I'm reading. And of course, I still read Superman and Batman because I love them. But I like the more cerebral Batman story. I like the family dynamic that's in Superman now. I agree with you. Fight scenes just aren't my thing. If they're any of our viewers' things, that's great. That stuff's out there for you. Go for it. That's fine. It's just not my thing anymore. I'm just like, I just don't need to see Superman fighting Doomsday. I just like, you know, whatever. That's
Yeah. The problem with that is at the end of the day, most of those fight books, they rely on the actual fights, and eventually you're going to run out of opponents, or you're going to run out of concepts, and then you're going to have to start all over again, like in an alternate universe, and then you start doing the same thing again. The appeal of indie comics and Image and Dark Horse and all those other publishers is that you get to tell new stories and
yeah.
explore concepts of humanity and mortality, sexuality, violence. I don't know, so many different areas that you explore. I kind of don't want to continue reading the same thing all over again. One of the superheroes, and I'm going to sound like a fanboy, so I apologize in advance, but one of the superheroes that doesn't have a lot of material is Aquaman, for example.
Fanboy!
I mean, he only has a certain amount of titles, and they always do the same thing. So when you get like Dan Abnett that goes into Atlantis and explores sort of this war that's occurring down below and all that stuff, that is refreshing. Whereas with Superman, I remember when the Rebirth title, Action Comics rebooted, and it was just fighting Doomsday, and that's it. And then the next opponent, I'm like, I kind of want to see more. I don't want to see the same fight from the 90s, but in 2000s with better art. I don't know. I think personally, I've grown past that. Yeah. And like you said, I kind of want to read and push the boundaries of what a comic book
That's
can
why
be.
I liked the Superman book better than the action book. And somebody said, well, it is called action. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. But, but it was just fight after fight after fight. And I'm like, I think I'm going to drop this book.
With Batman, I don't know if I'm going to say something wrong here, but I've always wanted to read a very like super heavy detective book, like crime solving from from a forensic standpoint or something, not necessarily with fighting rogues. And I don't know, I just wanted to see a book with Batman solving a case, like a really difficult case and all that stuff with science and whatnot. Have we had a story like that where it leans more into the detective side?
Well, back in the 60s, he was known as the world's greatest detective. And that's where a lot of the Silver Age stuff, the middle period of the Silver Age, when you got away from him and Batmite and Ace the Bat Hound and stuff like that, the period from, say, 66 to 60, well, until Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams took over, and Ra's al Ghul was introduced, that middle period was a lot of detective crime solving. So he did a lot of prosthetics on his face and everything, and went undercover. I think there was some of that Matches Malone type stuff going on recently. I mean, within the past few years, but they haven't done much with that detective work recently. Yeah, that would be a cool change.
Because all I see when I think of Batman nowadays is fighting his famous villains, and they're like big superhero clashes, or like Clayface or Joker with insane bombs and all that stuff, which is cool and it's really awesome. But I kind of want to read something a little bit more down to earth with the character. I think it'd be a nice change of pace from the usual.
I agree. That sounds like a good idea.
Another point that I wanted to talk about was, well, we sort of talked about it, but like I liked the introduction of the Super Sons characters and what that means for the dynamic of Batman and Superman going forward. because they're here to stay. People love them, and you suddenly have a new window of stories that you can tell. And I wish they would do that with other titles as well, like new permanent status quo, and not just like Dan Slott Spider-Man, for example, where at the end of the run, okay, Dan ended his run, and then the new writer just wiped the slate clean, and let's start all over again with another thing. I kind of want to see more like the old school DC, where the characters, they got married, they had to deal with marriage issues, they divorced, or the story kept going. We just didn't see. Like nowadays, we're just stuck on a character's 20s and 30s, and it's that area only. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
I do, yeah.
Like if a character like Spider-Man, we've had Aunt May for letting go of Aunt May. We can do so much without her, and I don't mean that in a mean way. Just from a story writing perspective, I think we can let go of things and introduce other things and keep the.
I'm gonna sneeze here, just a sec.
Yeah, don't worry about it. And that goes also with artists. I don't know if we've talked about artists, but comics today. One of the things that aggravates me about the artist standpoint of things is that Jimmy Chung, for example, he was doing Justice League with Scott Snyder. That only lasted like three issues. They made a huge deal out of it, and the guy only drew like 2.5 issues or something like that, and he left. And now I have to read the book with another artist. Fortunately, Jorge Jimenez is excellent, and he's doing a wonderful job. But the constant changes really aggravate me. That's why I like the story with is very influential in a comic book sale, because the story might be great, depend on that art looking really buying and supporting that title. So when you have an artist that maybe as great as another one, it affects the book. So I do get tired of I get it. Large runs with DC and Marvel, you're gonna have different people going in and out. But I'd like to see larger chunks. Like I appreciated with Greg Capullo.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
A contract. He had a contract for more than 50 issues of Batman. Sure, he skipped out on a few issues because of other commitments and stuff. But for the most part, that 90% of that run, he was there. And I think that's part of the success of that New 52 title. Whereas other books, 6 issues in, we're going to switch, and then another 12 issues, we're going to bring somebody else. And the constant rotation, you're going to be like, well, I like the first arc, and then the third, then the second one wasn't as great. So you lose a lot of people and a lot of potential readers that aren't necessarily going to enjoy seeing the multiple art styles. I don't know.
I could not agree with you more. There was a book that Gail Simone wrote, Clean Room, and it had the first 2 books had the most fabulous art in them. I mean, it was clean and beautiful and spectacular, and I don't know what happened to the artist. The story was still great in book 3, but the art just did not match up to the first 2 books. And it was really a letdown, and it almost took me out of the book, which was too bad, because that was, I think, one of her best works ever. I can't say enough about how great Clean Room was, but the loss of that artist just frosted my cookies, because that was part of what made that run great, was that great art. And it makes me bonkers. When you have an art change, it's jarring. I think that's yeah, Capullo's the most famous example of that. I'm willing to wait on Seven to Eternity because Jerome Opeña is so slow. As long as I can get Jerome Opeña's art in it, I get that he's slow, but he's also exquisite. And I mean, I read the first 3 trades. I understand the 4th trade's not going to come out till 2021 or whatever, and I'll reread all 3 and read the 4th one. But keep the same artist, and it's going to be an excellent book. I know artists are capable of it. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips have shown time and again that they are a good team. They can churn out quality stuff all the time. And it's not like Sean Phillips is just bashing out stick figures. He draws exquisite stuff. The art in my Heroes Have Always Been Junkies is beautiful. It's more of a novelette. It's very short, but it's beautiful stuff. And I mean, Ed Brubaker gets Sean Phillips all the time, and it can be done. So I don't know what the issue is. Oh, what's his name? Draws Paper Girls with Brian K. Vaughan.
Cliff Chang.
Cliff Chang. I mean, he's writing. I mean, he's drawing all of Paper Girls. So maybe there's a financial incentive in there since they own the book. But you don't. I don't know. I'm looking at. Actually, with Image, I don't see that problem. And that is probably because they're financially incentivized to finish the book. I look at Deadly Class, same artist. Tokyo Ghost, same artist. Black Science, same artist. Black Hammer, same artist. I already talked about East of West, same artist. So it can be done. And you said Capullo was signed to a contract, so I would guess it's the financial incentives must have something to do with that. I'm trying to. I mean, I have a whole Image shelf. So Saga, of course, is famous. She's been doing the drawings for all of that. Revival had the same artist, so Image has to. Lazarus has the same artist. Blah 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 blah. Image has the same artists, and that must be the formula that they are financially incentivized to do it.
I like what they were doing with Saga, or what they're doing with Saga, that after a set amount of issues, they take a break and then come back to it. So there are brief periods of hiatuses so that Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples can recharge and continue the story and not have to worry about meeting that deadline and rushing the plot along and all that stuff. I know a lot of people are going to be upset about that, but I wish other companies would do that as well, because that is a great idea. Sure, you're going to have to wait a couple, 1 or 2 months, but I think it's worth it, in my opinion.
Well, I agree, and there's not a reader in this watching this that doesn't have a backlog that can't read something else while waiting for Saga. I mean, you're looking at a wall of backlog right here, so I got no problem with it.
Oh, yeah. We've been waiting how long for that 3rd book? It's coming out next month, by the way. Saga Deluxe Volume 3.
May is a nerd disaster month. There is so much happening. Man. I think, didn't we say it was like movies, books, and video games is just going to crush us? Movies, books, movies, comic books, and I think we said video games, but I know it's movies and books. There is just a wall of pop culture coming right at us in May.
The wallets are going to get crushed.
Yeah. Fortunately, have been keeping my spending down in April, preparing for that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's going to be a big month. Yeah, I'm thinking of other image books. I shouldn't, but
The guy that draws The Walking Dead. I forgot his name. If somebody in the chat can remember, help me remember that.
the original artist.
First it was Moore, and then he left. He did 6 issues, and then the other dude has been going on strong to this day. I forgot his name. Jesus.
I don't read it, so I don't know.
Charlie Adler, something like that. Anyways,
I don't read it.
He's done more than 100 issues. It's still going strong with that damn Walking Dead book. It's really impressive.
Yeah, but you're right. Not having the same artist in a series is maddening. It just is a jolt, takes you out of the story.
Yeah.
And I am going to say, in my opinion, it has to do with financial incentives, because Image does not have that problem.
Yeah. And it's really aggravating. For example, I'm reading a Spider-Man book, and it's by Oliver Copiel, and it looks amazing. And then he can't do it for another week or two, and they switch to a filler artist, and it's not the same. It's really janky, and I'm like, okay, I guess the plot is good, but the art is like, nah. That happens a lot. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm so used to, and bringing it over to the mangoes, I'm so used to the same author draws the comic book or the manga. They put that out weekly, so he has to work nonstop. And yeah, you can make the argument that that's excessive, but a lot of people are into that, and seeing that artist with that vision of how the character should look continue up until the series ends means something for a lot of people. New readers aren't necessarily looking forward to so many artistic changes.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about collected editions.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I'm ready to fire on DC on collected editions. Because Marvel, as far as I'm concerned, Marvel I have no issue with at all. Marvel knows how to put out collected editions. I mean, look at these beautiful Omnis behind me, and look at Doctor Strange. I've got 2 other Doctor Strange by Jason Aaron. This will fit nicely right next to it. I love oversized hardcovers from Marvel. I love skinny trades from Marvel. I love Omnibus by Marvel. And that is how it is. Omnibus, oversized hardcover, skinny trades. They don't intermingle with each other like DC does, and they will finish out a run. I do not understand DC's scattershot approach with their collected editions. It makes 0 sense to me. It tells me that whoever is in charge or whoever's working, and this isn't a new problem, it's been a problem for a number of years. They do some things right, like Green Lantern, Jeff Johns, beautiful. That was brilliant. The Rebirth oversized hardcovers are gorgeous. Absolutes are gorgeous. The Silver Age Flash and the Golden Age and Silver Age books that they put out on Superman, Batman, World's Finest, that whole run, that led me to believe they knew what they were doing, that they were turning over a new leaf. But putting out Absolute Court of Owls and then nothing else, and then this example, which this is probably the 20th time I've talked about it, just makes me want to run my head through a wall. Absolute Justice League.
Oh, yeah.
New 52, followed by nothing, trade paperbacks, followed by Dark Side War, Omnibus. And I'm not even talking about non-matching spine disorder disease. I'm talking about, how about a format that matches? It's not, I mean, that's just ridiculous. I'm not talking about non-matching spine disorder. I'm talking about something that looks good on your shelf and is the same format. It's not that hard. Yeah. Marvel has it down. Marvel knows what it's doing.
And if you line up an omnibus, a Marvel omnibus, a Marvel oversized hardcover, and a trade, they kind of look the same. Even though their sizes are different, they look the same on your shelf. Whereas a DC book, there's no incentive for new readers to go, hey, I want to pick up a huge Absolute book and then downgrade to trade paperbacks and continue reading the series in a lesser format. And then by the end of it, let's get an omnibus and a huge format. I don't know. The prices vary. It's a mess. Plus, you got books that are being canceled. You know that people want them, but then you cancel them, and then you bring them back, and then you cancel them again. I just think it's a bunch of people, uncoordinated people, trying to put stuff out, and it's not working. I think it was the right decision to cancel almost everything. Hopefully for the best. Hopefully they will want to restructure that collection department and put something better out there, because I'm looking at my DC books. They are so colorful because everything's so different and different sizes, whereas Marvel is just uniformly awesome, just everything stacked up together. Jesus.
Well, I mean, they're all over the place, and I just feel like there's no coordination. There's nobody listening to the fans. There's nobody that's coordinating anything. There's no follow through. If you're going to do Absolute Court of Owls, fine. Do the whole run in Absolute form. If you're going to, I mean, it's great news that they're going to do Snyder's New 52 in Omnibus, but who out there really trusts them to finish it?
Yeah, they could just put out one book and that's it.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
Who really trusts them to finish it? I don't trust them to finish American Vampire in omnibus form.
Yeah, I'm really scared about that, actually.
Their track record is
they canceled the Aquaman Peter David trades, which is just stupid. There's no reason for it. They had volume 3, it's canceled. I don't know why.
Well, they canceled something else in trade that everybody was looking forward to, and I can't think of what it was now. It was really going to be popular, and it was something in trades besides that Aquaman. I can't think of what it was, but they were trades that were going to be really popular.
Hitman. Wasn't it Hitman?
Oh, they canceled Hitman? Oh, they did cancel Hitman.
From what I understand, they canceled it, and it's rumored to be resolicited for next year. I don't know if that's true or not. But then in a recent solicitation, they're coming out with a reprint of Hitman's greatest hits, if you will, with just random issues. I'm like, Why? Why would you solicit
Wait, you
that
broke up
and
there. Hitman's what?
cancel the volume 1? They're coming out with a Hitman
Oh,
Greatest
that's
Hits with
stupid.
random issues thrown in.
That's just dumb.
You cancel. Why are you canceling volume 1 and bringing a compilation?
Those stories flowed throughout all the books. They flowed. You can't do greatest hits with Hitman. Oh my God. It ain't easy being a collected edition guy that collects DC stuff. I mean, I won't even get into the stuff they haven't collected. I'm just talking about the stuff they have collected and how goofy it is.
Everybody's saying in the chat that Kyle Rayner Volume 3 was canceled.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. The Kyle Rayner thing that everybody wanted. That's exactly it. You know, I didn't, they did a good job with the New 52 collections. They were standard size, but at least lots of stuff got put out there. Superman, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Detective, Batman. It was standard size hardcovers, but it all got put out there, at least. And they did a good job with the Absolute Wonder Womans, but God, I'll never stop talking about that JLA mishmash. That is just the dumbest thing they could have done.
Yeah. Even with the metal books that we talked about Monday, you have the main story in oversized hardcover. You've got the tie-ins in a trade paperback, and you've got the other 2 required reads in standard hardcover size. They do not match
required reads what?
The tie-ins and the required reads and all that stuff, they're in standard hardcovers and trade paperback.
So that's a big mishmash.
Yeah. I don't know. They're all over the place.
I mean, somebody makes that decision. Somebody says, we're going to do this, this, and this. So it's not like it happens by chance. Somebody's making that decision. It's a dumb decision.
Yep. Caldwell Comics says, why The Last Man Omnibus? Jess's most anticipated book.
I'm sorry, what now?
Caldwell Comics says that your most anticipated Omni is the Why the Last Man.
I did a whole vid on that. That's a ridiculous omnibus.
Yeah, if you're getting a new book for new readers, it should be a cheap format, not your biggest thing. Like, I'm not like a new reader won't go, oh, sure, I'll spend $150 on something I don't know about.
Yeah, they're going to go into Gabe's shop and say, can I have a trade of the first trade of Why the Last Man? And they'll go off and read that.
Exactly.
I've already got the oversized hardcovers of Why the Last Man. I don't need an Omni.
Yeah, those are great. I have them as well. They're really fun.
Yeah. That Omni is really, that sticks in my craw too. I mean, I did a whole video on it, so.
Yeah.
So what else needs to stop or change?
Dave K likes how Image does their first trade paperback and how I'm guessing how inexpensive it is to get that first book.
How cheap it is?
Yeah. Or he didn't write that, but I'm adding to it. Like, yeah, it's a great incentive for a $9.99.
You know, I've noticed doing the previews recently on Mondays that I have not seen a lot of $9.99 Image books. I don't know that that's a regular thing anymore. I could be wrong. I will admit that. I've been married long enough to admit when I'm wrong. So I will say that I could be wrong, but in doing previews, I have noticed not a lot of $9.99 image books recently.
Hey,
here's our boy.
I made it.
Woo! All right. How you doing, buddy?
Up, guys? What do y'all hate today?
Here's Ryley Moore, the
ranting
Omnibus
about-
Collector himself. We're ranting about a wide variety of things.
Obviously about being spoiled on important upcoming movies.
I led with that.
Yeah. Jess, I'm very sorry for your sacrifice.
I had to throw myself on that grenade for the good of the group.
We should have let the Australians do it because they're the ones that have already seen the movie.
That's a good point.
So what's on the discussion docket at the moment? What did I walk into?
Let's see. We just got done talking about DC's problem with its collected editions department.
Oh God. Which problem?
We concentrated mostly on their lack of direction in consistency and format.
Nope.
Also, the fact that they cancel every other book they solicit. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay. I said they cancel every other book they solicit, and also how many lines have they cut short? Like how many different series have not been fully collected that they started collecting?
Right, we talked about that. I forgot to say Unwritten, that they started out with an oversized hardcover of Unwritten and then just chopped it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't,
Do you even know these lines of books that might not end?
Well, and I said that it's great that they're putting out Snyder's Batman and Omnibus, but I don't trust them to complete it at this point.
Yeah.
And actually, you came at a good time because we're going to start a new topic that Gio was going to pick, because we've talked about publishing, we've talked about art, and I don't think have we talked about writing? I guess we did, sort of, a little bit.
Yeah.
And we talked about collected editions. We talked a lot about art.
We talked about a few tropes, but if Ryley wants to add to the trope talk, then yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you. We talked about how artists, how in a series, if you've got an artist that writes, how you have an artist that goes along for a while and then all of a sudden drops off, how it can be a jarring change in a series like in DC or Marvel. But that Image doesn't seem to have that problem. The artist stays on for the entire run of the book, and I mentioned that I thought it was probably because they have financial incentives since they own the book.
Yeah. It's very rare. Like for Image, I could name off the top of my head two that haven't stayed. Like I know on the Manhattan Project, Nick Pitara left and Langdon Foss came in. And then what was the other? There was another one on my mind that happened with. But sometimes when they switch artists, it's for like it's like a special thing. They're like, oh, we have a guest artist. Oh, what's the one that one dude, the abusive guy, was right? Or
Rat Queens.
Mm.
What was it? What?
Rat Queens.
Yeah. Rat Queens. They had a change of artists in the second volume. I know
Yeah.
there were, and like long running ones like Spawn. McFarlane was off of that one for a minute because I remember they made a big deal of him coming back on. But yeah, I think that you're correct in saying it's tied to the incentive because they are the owner, they're part owner of that series. Invincible had two different artists as well, Ryan Otley, and then I forget what the other person.
I don't know. You're better at that than I am.
What's its name? Walking Dead started with Tony Moore and then went to Charlie Adler, which caused some issues because I think Tony Moore, like, basically there was issues with giving him credit.
He sued Kirkman and AMC.
Yeah, because didn't he he wanted to make sure he had credit? Oh,
I'm sorry, Siri just talked to me again.
I think that he was trying to make sure he had credit on the show.
Yeah.
So I mean, it
on the
happened,
show, yeah.
But it's usually if it changes, it's because it's either like, oh, special guest artist, or because there's an issue with the current artist.
Corey Walker's the Invincible artist that you were talking about.
Yeah. But yeah, so writing, you said you're starting on writing. I know the only thing that I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the topic before the show was writing for trade.
Mm-hmm.
Like writing with the intent of like, oh, this is a 6-issue arc and this is going to be a good trade paperback. Like that to me is really aggravating. And because it's so widespread, because it's a thing that since trade paperbacks became the norm and like everything gets a trade, people have started to write with that in mind, and they, kind of divide their stories in a certain way to fit that. Whereas if you look at some other, older books typically, or sometimes some of the newer books are getting in the habit of not doing that, you have either a lot of stories that are pretty self-contained into a single issue, and then each single issue has things that bridge it to the next issue. A good example of that would be the current Green Lantern book by Grant Morrison. Most issues are pretty self-contained and just have like continuing threads throughout. Or they need to write with like, and I know that the industry kind of thought that they might go towards this eventually, but like write with as if it's a graphic novel. And we've seen that from also example from DC, like their Earth One books are a good example where they're writing a graphic novel instead of writing a 6-issue miniseries, which kind of fixes that. But when you're writing and you're like, oh, it's a 6-part story that's meant to fit into a trade, it kind of, I don't know, like, I guess the term decompresses that story, and usually you'll get something that could be wrapped up in like 3 issues, but they drag it out to 6 just so it can fit that paperback. So that's probably my biggest issue with writing in a lot of comics. And it sucks because sometimes it's a great story and it's a series that I really enjoy, but I'm like, this could have been a lot less space, a lot less issues. It could have been done a lot more efficiently. I don't know if y'all have any other big things that you want to say.
I know one thing we didn't talk about publishing-wise, and this is mostly a Marvel issue, and that's events.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know the event fatigue is real, especially when you have multiple events per year. And then because so many things get sucked into those events and you have so many tie-ins, and it's hard, especially if you're a new reader, if you're not familiar with the way events work, you might wind up thinking like, shit, do I need to read all 200 issues of War of Realms right now?
Yeah, DC's guilty of it too, to a certain extent, because I remember going into my comic book shop, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 2013 or something, and there was oh, I know, it was Convergence, and they said, here's this whole new thing that is this really interesting, they said, event that's going on in DC, and I was just like, you guys, I'm so sick of events. I am not taking part in this. I'm not buying any Convergence books. I can't take it. I can't take it. So I just didn't take part in it, and it turns out that was a good decision on my part. But yeah,
totally.
Marvel. I don't know how anybody, the floppy reader especially, can keep up with all the events that Marvel. I know they said they were going to take a break, but I don't. Since I don't keep up with current floppies, I don't know that Marvel has stayed true to that. Ryley, you'd know better than I would if they have kept their word and not done a bunch of events. War of the Realms an event?
Yeah, that's the current event that's going on for Jason Aaron's store.
It is an event. Is
Yeah.
Is it a line? Is it a line-wide event?
I think there's a ton of titles for it. I think it's like 6 issues of the main story, but practically every title is involved in some way because they've got a ton of characters involved.
That makes me want to tear my hair out, and I've got a full head of hair.
Just like the main thing I have with events, it's fine. You want to do that. You're not obligating people to read them, but you should be able to put the tie-ins separately from the other books.
Yeah.
I don't want to break up the thing that I'm reading to go ahead and read something else because I might be reading Spider-Man and I don't want to read that event. So I have to stop what I'm doing and be forced to, one, either get that tie-in book, which makes no sense without the main story, or two, skip it, and you're losing potential buyers from not getting those issues.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think events, the first event I was ever aware of, well, every year growing up, every year there was a 2-issue JLA crisis issues.
Yeah.
Crisis on Earth X, Crisis on Earth 2, Crisis this, Crisis that. But there was 2 issues. And it was fun. Yeah. There was, fine. There was a Crisis on Earth 2, okay, Earth 3, Earth X, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got a whole book of Crisis on Earth, a bunch of books on it. But I think the thing that kicked it off, the multiple events idea, was Crisis on Infinite Earths,
mm-hmm.
which I think was the first line-wide event that ever happened. Because I remember going in, back when I lived in California, going into the comic store, and not only did I have to buy the main title, but I had to buy freaking Blue Beetle and Booster Gold and all these titles I didn't give a rat's ass about just so I could follow the story. And I was like, this is insane. What's going on here? But yeah, that was Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I believe that was the first event. And Marvel has taken that and gone nuts. I just don't. It becomes really hard to read a book when it's got an event issue thrown in there in the collected edition, and you're going, "What the hell is this?"
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I've gotten to the point. Actually, I'm really fortunate. I kind of figured this out early on. I was like looking at events, and I'm like, okay, well, if it's not written by the writer of the main event, it probably doesn't matter that much. And if I'm not already following that series, then I'm probably not going to get much out of the reading experience of that issue. So I skip it. And honestly, like, that's been the best advice I can give for people. Like if you're wanting to follow War of the Realms, but you don't want to read all the damn tie-ins, just read Thor. Or like, what was another recent one? Like Blackest Night, for instance, not recent, but that like 10 years ago when Blackest Night came out, if you just read Green Lantern and Blackest Night, you'd be fine. Like, people will tell you, like, well, you should also read this and you should also read that. And it's like, if you just want the main story, just read that and you're absolutely fine. I guarantee everything else is like side stuff that you don't need to know, even if it's entertaining.
I agree.
What they need to do is make that apparent for readers and tell them, like, you know, do you just want the main story? Follow this. You want to know about this? Then follow this. Because I know that the idea would be, you'd be like, oh, well, you don't want to do that because then you're turning readers away from buying these other books. It's like, no, you want to do that because then you make it apparent to readers that they can afford to get in on this event. Because just referring again to the current event, the War of Realms, there was like 5 War of Realms issues last week or something like that in 1 week. And I read them all, and they were all enjoyable, but the only one that really mattered, aside from the main War of Realms, was Thor. So I was like, you don't need to read War of Realms Punisher. You don't need to read War of Realms Uncanny X-Men, as cool as it was. You don't need to read War of Realms Journey into Mystery that features a really random ragtag team of characters, including Death Locket from Avengers Arena. Like, you do not need that. But they don't make it apparent enough for new readers. So then people just look at it. It's too daunting. It's the same as like people who look at Spider-Man and they're like, do I have to start from issue number 1? Wait, which issue number 1 do I start from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so go ahead.
Dave K asked a very good question in the chat. Do you think they are still making these events to get people to buy titles that they really don't give a crap about?
I think that it is something that they try to do, because you'll see like a spike in sales every once in a while on a title. But and I keep referring back just because it's current, but for War of Realms, it's more miniseries. So if it's a tie-in miniseries and not tie-ins to ongoing series, that I actually prefer that, because then you're not shoving that story onto the ongoing series and making the writer take a break from what they were doing if they can't like tie it in to what they were already doing well enough. And it doesn't make artificial sales numbers for those tie-ins. I think one of the very few tie-ins that was actually part of the ongoing title that I read was like Unbeatable Squirrel Girl had a tie-in. But everything else, it's like Punisher is a miniseries, X-Men is a miniseries, Journey into Mystery is a miniseries. There's a bunch of miniseries.
It makes me exhausted.
I like the way that they do, like, one thing Marvel does that I like is they do small events sometimes. Like, they're not line-wide events, they're like focused to one character. Like Spider-Man had the Clone Conspiracy and Spider-Verse, so it's like very, very focused to the Spider books. It doesn't take over every book. It doesn't take over, Power Man and Iron Fist. It just ties into what would seem like it's important. And they're kind of doing that on Spider-Man again with an event called Hunted. But it's like there's no tie-ins. It's just Amazing Spider-Man, and then there are every issue, it's like issue 17 and then issue 17.HU. And issue 17.HU is a little side story that kind of ties in. And it's a nice way to do things where it's like, it's an event and you know that it's important and it's going to change the entire history of Marvel Comics as we know it, or whatever the fuck the tagline is that everyone always uses. But it's not going to change the contents of your wallet as you know it so much. And it's not going to tell you like, oh, you want to read this Spider-Man book, but also make sure that you're reading what Vision is up to at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about?
I think we covered a lot, actually.
I think we did too.
Looking at the chat to see if I can pull some questions. Do you guys think DC does main events in the comics better than Marvel? That's from Kenneth Ryley.
What was the last event DC did?
DC's doing Heroes in Crisis right now.
Oh boy, that got a lot of angry hate today.
I'm reserving everything. I'm reserving comment until issue 9 hits because I don't know if you guys know anything that happened or what's going on in that story.
I haven't read it yet.
I haven't read it.
I don't know if it's gonna wind up being a red herring. I don't know if they're just gonna like do a bait and switch at the end and do something different than what it seems is about to be said, because it ends on a cliffhanger. A character explains a bunch of stuff and then it ends on him saying like, and here's the truth. And I don't know if it's gonna be completely different to what they're setting up, which is kind of a shitty writing trope in itself. But I'd like to reread this once all 9 issues come out and go over all of it, because I think it's a really interesting concept. And I read one of our group members, I forget exactly who it was, and I apologize to that person, kind of broke down everything, talking about like the way that it talks about PTSD and how it's different in different people.
Oh, that's one of the guys I banned today.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not. I'm kidding.
Okay. I got nervous for a second. But
no.
like, it's something that like, you know, you don't see that side of the books. You don't see like, you know, if when people go out to war, like they come back and they're changed because of what they went through and what they experienced and what they had to do sometimes. And you don't see that same thing for superheroes. And so it was a really interesting concept. And of course, coming from Tom King, who is like the king, no pun intended, kind of pun intended, of doing like mental health stuff now with his heroes. It was something that I was really looking forward to. And it's been a really oddly paced and different type of series. So I'd like to read through it all in one go and kind of see it as a solid story and not as these pieces where I'm like, wait, what happened last month? Because I read freaking like hundreds of issues of comics every month. So I lose track, especially of stories that are pretty like, you know, heavy like that. But I think it'd be an interesting one once the collection comes out. It'd be an interesting one for all of us to read and review, because I think that everyone's going to have some words to say about it.
Yeah, today was an odd day on the page.
Were people on the page talking about Darth Vader?
No, I think it's too early for that. I mean, that issue just came out, and I think the whole series needs to come out and be put in context before anybody can. Speaking for myself, I think the whole.
For Vader?
Yeah, I think all 4 or 6 issues, or however many they're going to be. I think they're going to be 4. I think.
Well, the Vader series, it's a 5-issue miniseries of one-shot
Oh,
stories.
okay.
So that story that came out, issue 3, it's a one and done. The first 2 were one and done. That third one is one and done. And it's basically, it's Dark Visions. It's kind of a look into Vader and like stripping away all of the ideas of like him being having any sort of positivity to him. Like he's a bad guy. And they throw him in these situations, and it kind of reminds me in a way of like, this is off the wall, but like in Uncanny X-Force, every arc was them facing a difficult moral situation. And that's kind of the same thing with the Vader series. It's like the first issue, he there's something that happens, and it seems like it'd be like morally a normal person would be like, this is a difficult situation, but Vader just attacks his things head on because he doesn't give a crap, because he's a bad guy. He's a bad motherfucker who gives no shits, and he has a lightsaber that deals with all his problems. And it's the same thing in issue number 3. Something happens, and you're given from another perspective, and then at the end of it, like, just when they let you think, like, you know, oh, maybe this person is right, and they can have a good thing that happens, and Vader could be a good person, and blah, 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 and he just looks and, nope, that gets thrown out the window. And it's like, oh, yeah, because it's Darth Vader, because he's a bad guy. He kills younglings for fun.
Right. Yeah, well, I need to read it myself so I can have an opinion. I haven't read it. I've just heard blowback from it.
Freaking first issue, though, Vader on the horse, goddamn. Like that, and that cover is like probably going to be one of the best covers this year. Greg Smallwood, Darth Vader on a horse with his lightsaber and a freaking Imperial shield. Oh my god! Like, I want that on a poster. I want that tattooed on my leg. Not really. I don't want a tattoo, but it's cool.
Awesome.
But I mean, I could say more. I talked about it a little bit about that issue in our chat earlier. I don't want to delve into that forever. But yeah, you'd probably read it and make up your own mind about what was going on there. But I think, you know, Dennis Hopeless is a writer that I really have enjoyed, and I trust the way that he writes characters and stuff, and I can see what he was going for. But in comparison to what it could have been, I can see where there can be some issue. So I don't think that the people who had issue with it are wrong. I don't think that they're in the wrong at all. I think it is just a different and important perspective on things. And I say that obviously with a lot of respect to your daughter, because she was the one that, she's the only reason why I knew that people had issues with it, because you brought it up with her.
I'll have to read the first 3 myself and put it in context and read it and form an opinion and get back to her.
And then if she hasn't, then you can have her read them too.
Yeah, she loved the Darth Vader Jason Aaron book.
The Kieran Gillen one, or the Star Wars?
Right, the Kieran Gillen one. Jason Aaron wrote the Star Wars one, right?
Yeah, he did the main one, and then
right.
took over on Star Wars after.
Okay, I meant the Kieran Gillen Darth Vader one. She loved that one, and she loves Dr. Aphra.
Well, what else, guys? I'm about to pull into my complex. Is there anything else that needed to be touched up on?
No, I think we covered it all, except for any of the books we talked about. If they're in print, you can get the collected editions up to 50% off at instocktrades.com. And loyalty discounts tack on another 2% to that. Every quarter, there's an Omnibroslive discount code. If you're in the United States and order $50 or more in an order, you get free shipping, fabulous customer service, fantastic packaging. That's instocktrades.com. Our sponsor.
Nice.
Thank you.
Now it's time to get off of the internet until each of us sees.
Right. I'm seeing it tomorrow morning, so I'm signing off for good.
I've got about 24 hours.
You guys are going off the grid.
Yeah.
I have to wait till Saturday. Bless me.
Gosh.
Bless you.
By the way, shout out to the chat because they were awesome today and they did not spoil anything.
Oh, thank you, chat.
Yeah. I was trying to answer as many questions as I could. I'm not that great at chatting while I'm talking, so I apologize. But I tried, and they're
Thank you,
great.
Gio. Thank you for taking care of that.
Yeah, put your leg out for us in case there was any.
Yeah. Gabe was in the chat too at the start of the show, so.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he was doing a little bit of a damage control, if you will.
Okay.
It's a joke. Don't worry about it. It's a joke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gio, where can they find you on the internet when you're on the internet after you see the show Saturday?
You can find me at A Week in Geekdom here on YouTube, where I talk about anime, manga, movies, and comics. That's A Week in Geekdom.
You cover it all, buddy.
I try.
Ryley, where can they find you, my friend?
You can find me here. You can find me on my channel, Ryleymo, RYLEYMO. I think my wife is about to force me to make videos on there because she bought me a new camera and is like, you better freaking use this camera.
Awesome.
And then, of course, on the Facebook group, Omnibus Collectors Comic Swapping Community, and some of the spin-off groups. I'm also an admin and very frequent member on Otaku's Farm.
Mangoes.
Which is where we the mango farming and the animu and all that stuff. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Nice. And you can find me, Omnidog, on Omnidog's Vault on YouTube and Omnidogs_Vault on Instagram. Thank you, chat, for being so awesome tonight. And so we say goodnight. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace out, y'all.
Thanks, guys.